I woke up at 6:12 a.m. on February 17th, in room 203 on the third floor of St. Mary's Hospital in Albany, New York. The world outside the window was still covered in frost. The snow hadn't melted yet. The room was cold, quiet, with nothing but the beeping of a heart monitor beside my bed. I blinked, reached for my phone on the bedside tray and tapped the screen. Battery, 62%. Missed calls, 0. Messages, none. My name is Elena Lancaster. I'm 31 years old, a financial analyst for a small private equity firm downtown. By day I work full-time. By night, I freelance as a bookkeeper to send extra money home to my parents in Buffalo, over 300 miles away. I thought if I worked hard enough they'd be proud one day. But here I was, lying alone in a hospital bed after collapsing at work, dehydrated, burned out, and mentally exhausted. And not a single person had reached out. On the third day, I pressed the nurse call button and asked gently, "Could you check if anyone's called for me?" Her name was Clara. She looked at me for a moment, her expression soft and honest. Then she shook her head. "No, sweetheart. Nothing." Her voice was kind, but it cut like a knife. That evening I scrolled through my phone aimlessly. That's when I saw it. Michael, my older brother, 35 years old, was lying in a hospital bed too, somewhere 6 hours away. His right wrist was in a cast, and his left hand held up a peace sign in a selfie. My parents stood on either side of him, smiling. Mom had brought soup in the blue pot she only used when someone was sick. Dad had draped a navy blanket over Michael, the same one I gave her last Christmas. Caption read, "Family first, always red heart." I stared at that photo until the screen blurred. My eyes were dry. I wasn't crying. Not yet. I just couldn't believe it. They drove 6 hours to see Michael over a fractured wrist. But I had been in a hospital bed for 3 days and no one even texted. In that moment something inside me broke. I wasn't the daughter. I wasn't even the sibling. I was just the one who got things done. The one who sent money. The one who remembered deadlines, filled out tax forms, and handled the dirty work. I was the reliable one. The strong one. The invisible one. And now, when I needed someone, just one person, to check if I was okay, there was silence. Just silence. I still remember a quiet Saturday afternoon when I was 15. Mom was standing by the fence chatting with Mrs. Anderson, our next-door neighbor. They were talking about their kids as moms often do. I was inside wiping down the kitchen table. The window cracked open just enough to catch her voice as she laughed and said, "Elena's always been the strong one. She doesn't need help." I froze. My hand stopped mid-wipe on the wood. I didn't know whether I should feel proud or hurt. Strong was supposed to be a compliment, right? But that day it sounded like an excuse to stop caring. I had started helping the family far earlier than anyone should have had to. At 14, I was the one who memorized the grocery lists, clipped coupons, and knew which store had milk on sale that week. When Dad injured his leg slipping on ice that winter, I was the one hauling home plastic bags full of canned soup and toilet paper from the supermarket 2 miles away, on foot through snow. At 16, I learned how to file his taxes. Dad hated paperwork. It piled up in drawers like old junk mail waiting for April to arrive. I figured out deductions, made phone calls to the IRS, stayed on hold for hours while everyone else in the house watched TV. Michael never had to do a damn thing. He was always finding himself, and somehow that was enough. He dropped out of college in his second year. Spent months playing video games until sunrise, sleeping through job interviews and shrugging off consequences. Still, Mom said he was just sensitive. When I got accepted to Syracuse on a full scholarship, all Mom said was, "Well, at least we don't have to worry about tuition." No hug. No, "I'm proud of you." When I stood on that stage at graduation giving the valedictorian speech, I scanned the crowd looking for their faces. They weren't there. I kept hoping they'd show up late, surprise me. But the only seat that stayed empty was the one I had saved for them. A week later, Mom called. Not to say congratulations. Not even to ask how it went. "Elena, your dad's thinking of trading in the car. Can you help us figure out which loan plan is best?" I paid part of that car loan. Just like I'd paid to fix the leaky roof after the 2014 storm. The same roof that covered a home I no longer lived in but still helped keep standing. No one asked me to. But when I told them I'd taken care of it, Mom simply replied, "You should have saved that for yourself. But, thanks I guess." And I kept helping. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, Someday they'd look back and say, "We see you. We're proud." But they never did. I started to wonder if love in a family is some kind of unwritten contract, where whoever gives too much eventually becomes the floor others walk on. Michael never faced consequences. He maxed out credit cards, lost jobs, made mom cry during arguments, but he was always forgiven. I never yelled, never slammed doors, never rebelled, but I never got praised either. Once I even asked mom, half joking, half serious, "Do you think I ever needed taking care of too?" She looked at me, paused, and said, "You've always known how to handle yourself. I didn't need to worry about you." That was maybe the most honest thing she's ever said. And the loneliest. I wasn't strong by choice. I was strong because no one ever gave me the option to be anything else. Late April in Albany. The weather was finally warming up, the last snow melting off the rooftops. I was standing in my kitchen pouring water into the kettle when my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. No greeting. No emoji. Just 8 words, flat and cold. "It's Michael's engagement party this weekend. Maybe don't come, it might be too much." I stared at the text like it had come in the wrong language. Too much? What did that even mean? I reread it twice, 3 times. There was no follow-up. No explanation. Just a suggestion disguised as an unspoken disinvitation. I didn't reply. I just stood there, kettle boiling, heart sinking. 3 hours later I got the real answer from Aunt Sharon, the only one in the family who still called me just to talk. Her voice was gentle, like someone delivering bad news that could break bones. "Elena, your mom didn't want to say it outright, but Michael's fiancé's parents are a little, well, traditional. They thought your being unmarried so focused on your career might raise questions. So your mom thought it might be best if you sat this one out. Just to avoid tension." I couldn't speak. My breath caught in my chest like a trapped bird. I held the phone to my ear, frozen, listening to the faint hum of silence after Sharon's voice trailed off. Michael's fiancée was named Emily. Blonde, polite, interior designer. We'd met maybe 3 times. She always called me Elena, in a sweet, distant tone, like I was someone she'd been told to respect but didn't quite care about. And I always smiled, even though I knew that to her I was just a footnote in the family photo. The party was being hosted at our old family home, the one I still helped pay the mortgage on because Mom once said, "Your father's retired now. We just need a little help getting through." I had imagined that day differently. I thought I'd be there, standing beside Michael, clinking glasses, smiling at relatives I barely liked. I thought I'd tell a few embarrassing stories from his teenage years, eat some cold salad off a paper plate, leave before the music got too loud. That would have been enough. But instead, on that Saturday night, I sat curled up in my tiny studio apartment on Washington Avenue. The ceiling still leaked when it rained. The heater still rattled and barely worked. I reheated some leftover lasagna in a plastic container, ate straight from it, then wrapped myself in a blanket on the couch. No music. No celebration. Just me. And the soft, artificial glow of my phone screen. That's when social media exploded. Photo after photo. Michael in a fitted suit, standing proudly next to Emily in a cream-colored dress, flowers in hand, wine glasses raised. My parents grinning ear to ear, standing behind a long table covered in food I'd probably paid for. Even our old neighbor Mrs. Keller was there, the one whose dog I used to walk every Saturday morning for free. And under one photo posted by my mom. "So proud of our boy. A beautiful beginning for a beautiful couple. #family first, #blessed. I kept scrolling. I stared at every image, every smiling face. I zoomed in on the background, on the furniture I helped replace after the basement flooded in 2019. I recognized every detail. Every flower arrangement. Every person. All of them were there. Except me. I didn't cry. Not really. The emotion wasn't sadness. It was something sharper. Clear. A kind of cold awakening. A brutal clarity that finally told the truth I hadn't dared admit. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I wasn't even a person to them. I was a function. I was the silent pillar holding up their perfect little image. I was the one who paid for the Wi-Fi so they could post about blessings. I was the name on the insurance papers, the voice that called the plumber when the pipes froze. I was the one who remembered every deadline, every bill, every detail. But I wasn't family. And that night, sitting in silence in my cold apartment, I heard something inside me crack. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. They hadn't just left me out of the party. They had erased me from the picture. And I finally understood. I was never meant to be seen. Only used. Monday morning. One day after the engagement party I was erased from, I woke up at 5:42 a.m., earlier than usual but not to seize the day. I sat up in bed, still wrapped in my blanket, opened my laptop and stared at my online banking dashboard. There it was, a clean, emotionless list of recurring monthly payments. $132.44, National Grid. $86.91, City Water. $248, Spectrum Internet. $412.60, Homeowners Insurance. $17.99, Netflix. I scrolled down. Last month. The month before that. All identical. Quietly deducted from my account every month without fail. No questions asked. No, thank you. Not once. As I stared at the numbers, I felt something shift inside me. Not a scream. Not rage. Just clarity. I didn't owe them anything anymore. I started with electricity. Logged in. Cancel autopay. Done. Then water. Then internet. Difference. One by one. Confirm. Then I opened Netflix. The family had been using my account for years. Mostly Michael. His profile still had that ridiculous emoji next to his name, Mike's smiling face with sunglasses. I renamed it Account Closed, then deleted the entire thing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was awake. This wasn't revenge. This was unburdening. I opened the shared family calendar. I had created it years ago to help everyone stay organized. Doctor appointments for dad, mom's dentist visits, birthdays, bill reminders, even their wedding anniversary. I was the reason anyone remembered anything. I looked at the digital grid of color-coded responsibilities. Delete calendar. Confirm. Gone. Then I logged into our insurance portal and removed myself as the secondary emergency contact. The irony was sharp. They had removed me from their lives, so I was just catching up. Last, I went into Michael's HR system, where I'd been listed as his emergency contact since his DUI crash in 2021. I hit remove from emergency contacts. Confirm. Each click felt like a clean slice. Not painful, just precise. I didn't post about it. Didn't text anyone. Didn't write a dramatic farewell email. I simply disappeared from their system. They would only notice when the lights went out. When the Wi-Fi stopped working. When the water stopped running. When the Netflix login failed. And when they called for help. No one would answer. Then I opened my phone. Contacts. Michael. One by one I tapped block contact. The only person I didn't block was Aunt Sharon. She was the only one who ever called on my birthday. Not to ask for anything. Just to say, I'm thinking of you. I'm proud of you. I changed her name in my phone to Sharon Redheart, and set a custom quiet ringtone, so I could still hear her when the world felt too loud. When everything was done, I closed the laptop, stood up and poured myself a glass of cold water. I sat by the window, watching the early morning light stretch across the rooftops of Albany. Outside nothing had changed. The city was moving forward like always. People commuting, buses roaring, coffee shops opening. The world didn't know what I had just done. But I did. I had removed myself from being their fix-it girl. Their unpaid administrator. Their silent support beam. And for the first time I wasn't worried about the fallout. Because sometimes you don't have to scream to burn a bridge. You just have to stop repairing it. And for people who have gotten too used to leaning on you, your absence will always be louder than your voice. About a month after I erased myself from my family's life, financially, emotionally, logistically, things began to feel still. Not lonely. Just quiet. No texts from mom asking, did the insurance go through? No midnight calls from Michael about the Wi-Fi acting weird. No dad asking if I could call the plumber real quick. The silence was no longer foreign. It felt earned. Every morning I walked into the 21st floor of Sterling Capital, the firm where I'd worked for years and now led the Strategic Investments Division. A title I never bragged about. I never even added it to my social media. My family had no clue, as they never asked. Then one morning I opened my email to find a subject line from HR. New hire, Finance Department. Welcome Michael G. Lancaster. I froze. I clicked the name again. Read it twice. Michael Keith Lancaster. Junior Analyst. Assigned to the Strategic Investments Team. My team. And listed under Direct Supervisor? Elena Lancaster. I stared at the screen for a long time. A strange mix of irony and calm washed over me. Michael. My brother. The golden child. The one who got soup and selfies and praise. Was now walking into a job. Under me. And the best part? He had no idea I worked there. I said nothing. I didn't text Aunt Sharon. Didn't tell a friend. I just let the week play out. Monday morning. 9:03 a.m. There was a knock on the meeting room door. I looked up. Michael. He walked in hesitantly, clutching a folder, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt and the kind of forced confidence that doesn't hold under pressure. The second our eyes met, I saw it. Recognition. Followed by confusion. Followed by panic. Elena, he muttered. I smiled, calm as ever, and stood up. Good morning, Michael. Welcome to the team. I walked over, handed him the onboarding packet. HR documents, 90-day objectives, departmental KPIs. You'll be seated 2 rows down. I'll be reviewing your performance directly and holding your first evaluation by the end of the quarter. His hands trembled as he took the packet. Wait. I'm your manager, I said, cutting him off, my tone still even. And I trust you've read your job description thoroughly. He blinked. Tried to recover. Forced a chuckle. Yeah, just didn't expect to be on the same team. I gave nothing away. No smirk. No sarcasm. Just the same neutral professionalism I offered every other analyst. I didn't ask why he applied here. Didn't wonder if mom or dad had pushed him to get serious after the engagement. Didn't care if Emily had encouraged him to finally act like an adult. All I knew was this. While they were pretending I was just too focused on work, I was quietly building a career they knew nothing about. And now the same brother who once called me boring, who stood by as I was excluded from a family dinner in a house I helped pay for, was sitting in front of me, answering to me. I didn't bring up the hospital. Didn't bring up the party. Didn't mention the silence. I let the room do the talking. Let the weight of realization settle over him like snow, quiet, soft, but undeniable. That afternoon I passed by his desk. He was staring at his screen, typing slowly, awkwardly, like someone who didn't know if this was a dream or a nightmare. There was no bravado. No cocky grin. Just a man suddenly aware that he had stepped into a world built by the very person he once overlooked. And I didn't need to remind him. Because there's a unique kind of justice in letting someone feel what you never got to say out loud. Michael lasted just under 4 weeks. 4 weeks of uneasy footsteps echoing through the office, forced small talk in team meetings, and awkward hallway glances that never quite met my eyes. He tried, I could tell. But the effort didn't come from ambition. It came from discomfort. From the quiet shame of suddenly working beneath the sister he'd never once taken seriously. On Monday of week 5 he left a short email. I appreciate the opportunity. But this role isn't the right fit. And just like that he was gone. No handshake. No goodbye. No explanation. I read the email while sipping coffee, then closed my laptop and walked into my next meeting. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt complete. A few days later my phone rang. Then Dad. Missed calls. Voicemails. One of them said, Elena, I know things have been tense. But we're still family. We can't stay silent forever. A week after that a card arrived in the mail. It was from my father. The front read, We miss you. Inside handwritten, You've always been the strong one. But we forgot that being strong doesn't mean you don't need love. We're sorry. I read it. Slipped it back into the envelope. I didn't rip it. But I didn't respond either. I'm not angry anymore. Truly I'm not. But I do hope for the rest of their lives, they remember the silence I left behind. Because that silence carried more weight than any speech ever could. It was made of every moment I was overlooked, every milestone ignored, every dinner I wasn't invited to. It was a silence filled with presence they took for granted. They didn't realize I was the one keeping the walls from collapsing. And when I walked away, they finally felt the weight. I moved into a new apartment near Washington Park. No leaking ceilings. No broken heater. Every morning I make myself coffee, open the windows and let the sunlight pour in. No buzzing phone. No bills that aren't mine. No more obligations dressed as love. I didn't just leave the family. I left the role they assigned me. I was no longer the fixer. The dependable one. The emotional mule they could load up and forget about. I became someone with boundaries. Someone unreachable. And to anyone watching this right now, if you've ever been overlooked, undervalued, or erased in your own family, I want you to know something. You don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you can do. Not to punish them, but to reclaim your story. To rewrite your part. Not everyone deserves your effort. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can teach someone is through your absence.